Shishir, how are you doing?
Hi Abhishek, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good as well. So basically, this is a mock interview session in which Shishir is having total experience of 5 years in IT and 5 years in software testing. He has worked on functional testing and he's upskilling in Tosca and he has Tosca experience of 1 year. So we'll be interviewing him a mock interview and let's get started. So uh, tell about in terms of working with Tosca, what kind of applications you have worked with, like web applications, desktop applications, or what kind of applications you have experience with?
I have experience working on web applications where business used to give us a requirement, and later manual testers will be doing the manual testing. Once the manual testing is done, we used to create a regression test suite by using a test case designs for the regression part.
Okay, okay. And uh, in case of Tosca, what is what are the identification methods which are available?
In Tosca, we can identify by four types of identifications. The one is identified by properties, and the second one is identified by anchor, and the third one is identified by image, and fourth is the identified by index.
Okay. So there is one more method. It is called identify by parent. In case of identify by parent, so basically whenever you will run into scenarios in which there is a structure, you can use the parent element to identify a child element as well. So do check out on that particular scenario. There would be scenarios where this would come into picture. So whenever you are scanning, what would be your first preferred method of identification?
The first preferred one is identified by properties, where we used to scan a web page. Like if you have a two fields, username and password, we used to scan those two fields by identifying it by properties. If those two fields are not identified uniquely, then the next step we used to take is by anchor. We used to identify one which is uniquely identified. With that help, we used to identify the another field which is not uniquely identified by using the anchor.
Okay. And when do you go with image? Post that, right?
Yes, post that. We won't usually consider using identify by image and identify by index, since identify by image can cause a problem when there is a when the resolution comes into the part. So we don't recommend using identify by image and identify by index.
Okay. In case you have no other option and you have to use image, what would be the best practice you would use?
Hmm. The best practice is to identify by image. Uh, I'm
It's
not sure. I'm
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So basically, what happens is there are some scenarios in which you would come across where there are no other identification methods available. Okay, so you go or you have to choose image-based identification. In case what you have mentioned is you rightly said that the resolution is always a factor. So whenever you use image-based authentication, it's preferred that you decrease the accuracy. So when you decrease the accuracy, even if there are some resolution changes, it will take care of that. So that's how it is preferred to use. Now it will depend on the application and the requirement and uh, what place to be used. And obviously, image-based identification is not a stable one. But in case you have to use it, you should always decrease the accuracy.
accuracy means it will be when by default it will be 100%, right? To how much we have to decrease it, like 70
So
or
so basically what happens is I think it is some 95% or something like that. I'm not very sure if it comes like by default 100%, but
Yeah.
it, so it totally depends on your application. But you can decrease it, like perform a few dry runs and see that in different instances what is the perfect accuracy which works for you. You can go to 75, 65, 55 as well. It depends on what kind of action you are performing and all those things as well. But in order to come to the right number, do perform dry runs with changing accuracy and see whichever is stable for you and use that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
And we'll just dig a little bit more deeper on this uh, identification method. So when you're searching for any particular element and you're not able to get it uniquely identified using the properties, which is by default captured by Tosca,
Yeah.
what other option do you explore in searching for more properties?
Uh, when I use identify by properties, two things will come up, which is the technical part and representation part.
Correct.
So in the technical properties, it might have selected ID, username, or HTML. Those fields
Hmm.
will be checked, or whatever, some fields might have checked with the ID, uniquely identified. It might use the IDs. So some fields are identified using the username. So based on those technical properties, if a field can uniquely identified, I used to go with any technical properties present for those particular field.
Okay. So let me give you a little bit deeper understanding into this. So I'll have I can open any website. So demo QA, we can use this. So I'm just using this particular website, and I'll just show you. Let me get started with this scan. So basically, whenever you're searching with properties, okay, the first thing is you take a look at the properties what are being automatically captured by Tosca. Okay, then you can always take a look at uh, adding additional properties. Okay, so you will get an option to load all other properties, because not all the properties will be displayed in the first instance. Okay, I'm not sure if this particular website has that much, but here if you see uh, this here. So here if you see, click on more, here you will get this option called load all. Okay, so if you
Okay.
will click on this, right now you're able to see like some 4 properties here and some 10, 12 properties here. If I'll click on load all, so now whatever property this particular element has, everything is going to get loaded here. Okay, so we need to first explore all the options in this if we are able to identify an element using any of these properties. Okay, now uh, in cases like, let's say in this particular link, okay, I'll show you one more thing. So here you will get this option of XPath as well. Okay,
Okay.
and in case you have understanding on XPath, you can use this as well, this parameter as well, for finding the element uniquely. So in case you're aware about XPath, it is very easy to find any elements XPath. In case not, uh, do gain some understanding on how to find XPaths, and you can use that as well. So that would not be like you don't need to select it here. So that is also one option mentioned here.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now the parent thing, what I was talking about. So this is not the correct example, but just to showcase in this. So let's say I want to find this, okay, and I'm not able to find any property uh, uniquely in this. So there could be a parent with which it is associated, right? Every element inside would have some kind of parent, right? Unless it is the top parent. So you can
Yeah,
always identify this uniquely, and that might help you identifying the child element as well.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
got it. That is parent and child wise, as you said, that comes as a hierarchy. Means the parent will be at the top and the child will be inside the parent.
Correct, correct, correct.
So
Okay.
since the parent has been uniquely identified, the child is also means whichever comes under the parent that will also be uniquely identified.
Correct. So in that case, what happens is there is a traversal flow. Okay. Now,
Mhm.
if this particular parent has similar childs, then obviously you would need unique property of this child as well. So it will depend on scenarios, but every element should have one or the other property which is changing, right? So,
Yeah,
so using parent also it becomes easier. So it will depend on case to case, but that is also one method in which you can find it out. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, so next I would ask like what is the difference between a business parameter and a configuration parameter?
Uh, configuration parameters are the parameters which is used to define uh, set values, and business parameters are the ones where we used to give the dynamic values for the execution part.
So how the value is going to be dynamic in case of business parameter?
Uh, uh, business parameter we used to use it in the reusable test cases. So in the reusable test cases, whenever the one test case is been that reusable test case is used in another scenario, we used to change the values, right? So that is how it comes under the dynamic.
Okay, okay, perfect. So that is right. Business parameter is used in case of reusable test step blocks where there are few parameters which we want to pass in as a input, and test configuration parameter is used as a set of inputs for your test objects. So that is a perfect answer. Now, uh, as a Tosca automation tester, when would you approach to create a reusable test step block? What would be your mindset? Where would you be creating that?
uh, Reusable test step blocks are used for the common test cases like open web page, close the web pages. Uh, those are the ones, and other things are like logging into the desired. If I open a web page, we have to log in, right? For
Mm-hmm.
example, Facebook.
Correct.
So to log into that, username and password will be the data we used to provide. So there we can use the business parameters to log in to that page. So I think opening a URL and closing the web pages, those two common test cases can be used in the reusable test blocks.
Okay. Okay. Correct. Now coming to execution. Tell me, how do you create what is the difference between a scratchbook and the execution in the execution list?
Uh, Scratchbooks are the ones uh, where we can use it to find out the errors. Like the scratchbook doesn't give the report, the final report. But in the execution, if I execute a test cases in the execution list, a report will be generated. Uh, I think so. That is a thing because in the scratchbook, whatever we do, that will be a trial and error until means if I start a test case, it has to be executed. I'll start from the scratch, right? There will be multiple test cases under the multiple test steps and test cases to one particular test. So what we will do. all the things we will make sure it works by running in the scratchbook without generating the reports every time we run. But once everything is set and fine, what we will do, we will move those test cases into the execution list, and there we will finally we will run all the test steps included to the test cases, and we will generate a report in the while running in the execution list.
So you're on the right track. Just a little bit of modification there. So basically,
Okay.
whenever you are running in Scratchbook, that is usually used for debugging. And what happens is, whatever the results you get is not saved in Tosca. Okay. So if I do a run right now, what will happen is that will be temporarily stored. So it will be showed to me, and then once I close that Scratchbook, it will not be saved here. While in case of execution list, if you run anything, it the log of that execution will be saved. So that is the major difference. Now you can execute a single step in execution list as well, but
Mhm.
uh, Scratchbook is usually used when you are creating the script and you want to check smaller steps, or even if your test case is ready, you just want to perform dry runs. That time you use Scratchbook, and once your test case is ready, then once you move it to the execution list.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
So have you got a chance to work on the requirement section of Tosca Commander?
Uh, Requirement section, I'm not uh, completely used it.
Okay.
Whenever a test case, or whenever the test case have several test steps that has been included in the requirement section, but I'm not mostly come across the requirements
Uh,
part.
okay, sure. We can skip that part. We can cover that at a later point in time. Uh, how about creation of templates? Like, why do we create templates in Tosca, and what purpose does it serve? Do,
Uh,
if you know about that.
uh, yeah, in in Tosca, templates are structured formats that can be reused to create a test cases. It is possible to convert the test case that have very similar steps into templates, so that they can be used for a variety of data combinations.
Okay, and so does that mean the template will be connected with the test case design, right? Is what you're referring?
Yeah, yeah. Data from test data sheets are used in templates.
Okay.
Where you initiate a template, you convert a single test case template into several test cases.
Okay, so that is right. Based on the data input parameters, if your test cases are changing, then you can define those parameters in test case design. So let's say based on 10 different test data parameters, your test cases are changing. Then when you connect the TCD with your template, and then once you instantiate, you will get all those 10 different instances.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, mm, okay, we have covered this. Okay. So, in case of configuration parameter, what kind of like, let's say I've defined a value in configuration parameter. Okay, here I've defined some value, and I want to use that value in my test script. What command
Mhm.
would you use for that?
For configuration parameters, open flower bracket CP and open square bracket, the value which I've given to set a configuration parameter, and close the brackets, square bracket and flower CP. We
Oh,
will use this.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that is perfectly right. Coming to buffers. So let's say I have a scenario in which I want to just buffer a portion of that text. So let me give you an example. So let's say this website is there, and we'll see
Uh,
something
yeah.
like uh,
You mean to say it is if it is a Selenium, you just want to buffer ACLE.
yeah, something like that. Yes, you you
Uh,
you got it right.
yeah, I got it, but I'm not sure. I forgot that.
Okay, sure. So basically, the concept of dynamic buffer comes into picture. Okay, I may have a created module already in which I can show you. So let me just cross check. Okay, so here it is. So basically, what happens is in this case, uh, name colon was there, and then whatever name was coming, I wanted to buffer that. Okay, so
Mhm.
just want to buffer a portion of the text. Now there are two different ways you can do it. You can use a partial buffer as well, in which you need to know the exact start point and end point. However, this is a more efficient way. Now it will depend on what kind of scenario you are running into, but if the scenario is something similar to this is a more efficient way. Okay, now in case of buffering this, you just mention xb instead of b, which you usually use in case of buffer, right? And in
Yeah.
case of buffer, we use the action mode as buffer here. But in case
Yes.
of using this dynamic buffer, we have to use action mode verify. So this is a very common question, like if you will mention buffer here, then this is not going to work. Okay, you have to use verify method here. Okay, so that is how it is going to work. Okay,
Okay. Okay. After name colon, you are buffering some values,
yeah,
part of values, right?
yeah,
Here.
yes,
Okay. So name to use is the buffer name. Means dynamic
yes,
buffer name.
yes. And
Okay.
let's say I want to see what all buffers are there in my project. Is there a way to
Mhm.
uh, is there a way to see all that?
I think we can see at the right view, and in the right side of the dialog we'll get somewhere.
Okay, you are right. Here we'll see in the
Yeah.
tools buffer viewer, and here you can validate whatever buffer values you have stored here. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So buffer part we have covered. Uh, so what other applications or technologies Tosca has the ability to do automation?
Tosca can automate the web applications and desktop applications. Also, some legacy systems like mainframes and API testing can also be done through Tosca.
Okay,
Uh, so all types of testing can be done in Tosca.
okay. Have you worked on API testing, or do you have a general idea about this?
I'm not very sure on API testing
Okay,
because I'm not hands-on on that in Tosca.
okay, no worries. So, just to give you an idea,
Mhm.
once you learn about API testing, the
Mhm.
similar things you do in other tools like Postman and all, Tosca also gives that functionality. So this is called API scan, which you can use to capture your endpoints, your scenarios, and then you can import that, or it gets auto saved when you're using with Commander, and you can use that for executing your test cases, API test cases.
Mhm.
Okay, and uh, when you are using anything other than web application, okay, so there are different kind of engines which come into picture. Do you have any idea about that?
Mm, no, I
Okay,
don't have any.
okay. So basically, what happens is when you perform a scan. So let me quickly show you that. So what Tosca does is wherever it performs a scan, so let's say we were talking about this one, right? So if you right click on this, you'll be able to see
Mhm.
different things here, right? Like HTML, Vision AI, UIA, WinX, okay. And then
Yeah,
it'll what Tosca does is it automatically is try to understand which kind of technology you want to scan it with, okay. In case and whatever it feels is right, it auto selects that, okay. But
yeah,
when you're working with desktop applications, when you're working with applications which are not HTML, then that particular option will be selected. uh, Most likely that is going to be right, but in case that is not, you can use another engine. So these are the different engines which
Mhm.
are used for identifying it, okay. So if it is a desktop application, HTML will not work, so you will use any other engine for that, okay. So you can change the engines here in case you run into a scenario like that,
Okay. Yeah.
okay.
Got it. Yeah.
Now let's say I want to uh, I want to do execution using the backend, like using the command prompt. Is there a way in Tosca to do that? Are you aware about that?
Uh, no, I'm not done that.
Okay, okay.
Not done that.
So a concept called TC shell, have you heard about that?
Yes, I've heard about that.
Okay. Whatever you know, can you please tell me?
Uh,
Okay,
uh,
that's fine. If you
yeah.
don't know, feel free like to tell. No, there's no. It's just a mock interview.
No, I have heard about that, but I'm not gone through what the TC shells do and
Okay.
what is the. Yeah.
So basically, when you will install Tosca, you will get all the different files in the tbox home directory. There you will have a TC shell document, which will lay out everything for you. Okay. So basically, what
Okay.
happens is using command prompt, you can connect to Tosca, and then whatever subset you want to like execute or perform actions on, you can do that. So take a look at that. There are so this is also one interview question which could be asked, that what
Mhm.
kind of TC cell options we have. So there are basically two different ways, okay. So you can go to command prompt and perform your actions, okay. So that will be called like interactive, okay, in which you can change or you can type whatever you want, okay. Now
Yeah.
in case we want to execute that using automation, and we do not want the manual intervention, in that case you create a file in which you mention the commands. Like for example, if I want to like come to this, click on run all, save this, or execute another something like that, like whatever set of actions are there that you mention in a notepad file, you save it as a uh, like a bat file, and then if there are extra actions to be performed, you save it as a TCS file and you link all those things. So do take like try to learn about little bit about TC shell, and then at a later point of time we can discuss about TC shell as well.
Yeah.
So that is also one important concept. uh, so majority of the things in the basic scenario we have covered. We'll a little bit talk about uh, Tosca CI/CD thing or the deck server, and whatever understanding you have, you can share accordingly, and we'll discuss on that. Okay. So,
Yeah.
what are you like in terms of deck server? What all knowledge do you have? Like, what do you understand by decks in case of Tosca?
Uh, 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 text is nothing but a distributed execution. As the name says, uh, the execution of more test cases. For example, if you have a 200 or 300 test cases which has to be executed, uh, like uh, what what the distributed execution will do, it will have four virtual desktops has been created, and all this 300 test case has been segregated in to the those four virtual machines, and all those uh, 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 300 test cases which has been segregated to four virtual machines will be executed at the same time. So this is, I think, that is what the distribution execution will do.
Okay.
So that is my understanding
Okay.
on distributed execution.
Okay. So that is right understanding. And just to explain it a little bit better, or like maybe more deeper into that, is Deck server has been created for distributed execution, as the name suggests, and that
Mhm,
enables us to efficiently execute our test and
mhm,
reduce our time for execution. Okay.
mhm,
So there are other methods which are provided by Tosca in which we can use the build tools of CI/CD as well. But
mhm,
this Deck server is provided by Tricentis, which can be used independent of the build tool. Okay. So they provide all the functionality in this in which you can execute your test from Tosca by setting up the Deck server. Okay. And you can perform your remote executions in that. Now it depends on the number of machines what you need. uh,
mhm.
just giving the answer as like four machines is not right. There could be two, there could be four, there could be eight, there could be 12, there could be 15. It depends on how many test cases you have, what kind of infrastructure do you have, how do you want to tackle all those things. So based on that, the number of devices would be required. Now there is a
Yeah,
certain setup required for that, which would be which would need to be performed once, and then you can execute your test.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
uh, so that was on the Tosca deck server part.
Mhm.
Do you have an understanding on Tosca CI or using CI CD? Any understanding on that?
Uh, Tosca CI is like it is a continuous integration where test can be executed directly from the build
Okay.
without the user have to performing or run them themselves manually. So it can be directly executed.
Okay.
Where we'll use examples of CI tools or like Jenkins and Bamboo, etc.
Okay. Okay. So that is right. Uh, so basically, we can use any of the build tools, and for us to interact using the build tool, Tosca provides a feature called Tosca CI. Okay. So Tosca CI is something which acts as an interface. So consider a scenario in which from your local machine, you are sending some instructions to another virtual machine. Okay. While you're not using Deck server, you're using Tosca CI and a CI/CD tool. So what happens is whatever you perform in like whatever set of actions you need to perform, you mention all those details in the CI/CD tool, and that CI/CD tool connects with that particular virtual machine to Tosca using the Tosca CI interface on the virtual machine in which you are trying to execute your cases.
Yeah.
Uh, was that clear, or should I explain it again?
Uh, can you explain it again?
Yeah, sure, sure. So basically, see what your like. Let's say in your local system, you have thousands of test cases. Okay,
Okay.
and there's a virtual machine, another virtual machine in which you want to, like, there are two, three virtual machines, or let's say n number of virtual machines are there in which you want to execute your push all your thousand test cases to get executed. Okay. Now
Okay.
in this case, we are using any build tool in between to tell to that virtual machine that we are going to execute all these thousand test cases in these virtual machines. Okay.
Mm,
So what happens is you do a certain type of definition in case of the CI/CD tools. So that is like a pipeline creation. So Tosca interacts with your CI/CD tool, and CI/CD tool interacts with that virtual machine. Okay.
mm,
Now,
yeah.
one thing comes into picture when the CI/CD tool is interacting with that virtual machine. It it needs to interact with Tosca as well. So Tosca provides a interface. That interface helps us communicating, helps the CI/CD tool to communicate to that virtual machine and then to Tosca and perform your execution.
Mm,
Okay.
yeah.
So there is a certain set of like you need to set all this up before execution, obviously. But this is how the major kind of flow goes on. So in that case, like if you do not want to use the deck server, or if this is more efficient, you can opt for either of these two options.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, here CICD acts like a
See,
mediation between the Tosca and the virtual machine.
so see what happens is CI/CD tools like Azure, AWS, Jenkins, and all these things are there in the market, right? So CI/CD
Mhm,
tools, in CI/CD tools, you will create pipelines which will take
mhm,
the input from uh, the whatever kind of tool you're working with, whatever suite of tools. Okay, so usually in cases where projects are huge and where CI/CD is implemented, that particular tool is being used by across the projects, right? Like someone is doing development or some other activity, so that becomes one common source. So that is very good that if everyone uses the same build tool. So in that case, you can always interact with Tosca with that build tool, and then since you are kicking off your executions in another virtual machine, you can do that connection as well easily. Now in that virtual machine, for you to communicate, that Tosca CI comes into picture.
okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, so that's related to the remote executions. Uh, do check some things on the Tosca CI as well. So as far as I understand,
Yeah.
you have an understanding about test events, test mandates, and all these things.
Yeah. Yeah. That the test events means comes under the distributed executions, right?
Yes, yes.
Events. Yeah. Yeah. High level of understanding is there, but I'll again check those to get it really understanding those concepts
Yeah,
in,
sure.
in
So test event is a concept which is specifically related to text. So you can look into that, and that would be good in terms of understanding the remote execution part. Okay. Let's get into one more question. So so whenever you automate any application, and
Mhm,
let's say uh, you have performed like you have entered the username and password, and then you need to click on login. Okay, while that
mhm,
login button appears after entering the password. Okay, and it may appear within 2 seconds, or it may appear in 10 seconds. How would you handle
mhm.
that kind of scenario in Tosca?
Uh, we will use a wait on T-box wait on. We can use a T-box wait on standard modules there in between the test cases where we input the fields and where we click the login button, and we can set a values to wait for 5 seconds in that standard module to T-box wait on standard module. So it will wait for 5 seconds to click on the login.
So if so, so that is on the right track. However, the answer is incorrect. So there are two things. One is called static wait, and one is called dynamic wait. Okay. So
Yeah.
you have
Mhm.
actually mixed both of these in one. Okay. So let me give you an
Okay.
idea. So if you go into a test case, okay, and let's
Mhm.
say here, like let's say some action is get performed after this. Okay. So if I'm aware, like I can use this tbox wait, which is there by the
Mhm.
standard modules. Okay, and here this is the inbuilt module. Okay, now here I can mention whatever kind of duration. Okay, so let's say I want it to wait for 2 seconds. I can mention 2 seconds here. Okay,
Okay.
however, static wait is not a good practice uh, because if it is taking less time, then your time is getting wasted here. Okay, so for good execution efficiency, what you would do is you would try to use dynamic waits. However, there would could be cases where you need to use static wait. Okay, now this is the
Mhm.
way to use static wait. Now second thing is I'll do some changes in this. Okay, so let's say I want like the condition which we were talking about, the login button, if it appears or not. So let's say this is the login button. Okay, what I would do is in the action mode I'll put wait on. Okay, and then here I have to mention for what property or what do I need to wait on. Okay, so let's say if I mention here, let's say exist is equal to true. So let's say if I mention this, so what happens is, uh, unless this property is loaded, Tosca waits for this property to be loaded. So this would be able to handle the condition which we discussed, that the login button is going to appear even if after 2 seconds or after 10 seconds or after 15 seconds. Okay, so what happens is Tosca will wait and try to check that, okay, if the property is loaded or not, if the property is loaded or not, and then the next set of actions are going to get performed. Okay, now there are certain settings which you need to do at the project level for to define that how much time do you give Tosca to wait it on, but that's like deviating from this topic too much. So here it is like you will wait for that particular property and then you will take an action. So let's say the property appeared in 2 seconds, then immediately it will move to the next step and perform the action. But let's say it took 10 seconds. At that point in time, it will wait for 10 seconds and then perform the next set of actions. So in that way,
Yeah,
you can easily handle your scenario of uh, this particular delay and all.
yeah, yeah, got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, Next thing. So in terms of uh, workspace, do you understand the difference between a single user repository and a multi-user repository?
Uh, I'm not sure, but a single user workspace are like it has been stored in the local machine, and multi user repository will have will be connected to the different machines, I think.
Okay. So I will clear your concept here. Basically, single user repository is used when only one person is working on it. Okay. Usually, when you are doing some trying to understand how to work with this tool, or maybe
Mhm.
performing some kind of POC in isolation, that at that point in time you will use a single user workspace. Okay. However, whenever you will work in any organization, at that point in time you will have a team of people who would be working on this automation efforts, right? At that point of time, you use multi-user repository. So how that multi-user repository helps is, uh, everyone works on the automation efforts and that is saved at a common location, and everyone uses the check-in check-out functionality of Tosca, which enables you to work on your modules as well as your teammate will work on their modules, and everyone's work will be there in one particular place.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just give you a little bit more understanding on this. So how do you create a multi-user repository, and then we can wrap up this session. And so here, once you come into this project, right? I got I closed it. Give me 1 second. So here, if you click on create new, you will see this option, creating single user workspace, right? If I click on this and I have the option to use any of the different type of repositories. Okay, now whatever kind of repository they want your user setup to be done. Okay, so let's say I use MS SQL Server. Okay, so basically I'll be using this to hold my repository. Okay, now in order to connect with this repository, there would be a connection string required. So this comes into picture for us to connect with MS SQL Server. In case you have not worked with this, there is a certain format for it to be created, but you usually take help of the DB folks and get this connection string created. But there is a certain format which it mentions as well. So it will be like server name, database name, user ID, and password. Okay, and then once you create your workspace, then what happens is everyone else and in your team and you, sorry, work on the same source code, if you would say like that. Okay, and once you create this multi-user repository, uh, the check-in checkout process of Tosca comes into picture, so that like whenever you are working on your modules, you first check out so that no one else can work on that, and once you're done you click on check-in. So that's how
Yeah,
the projects would work on uh, Tosca.
yeah,
Okay, so what we can do is we can wrap up the session now, and in case you have any other questions, we can cover it in another call. And uh, yeah, and we can talk about it, like what went well in this, or what do you feel, how this session was.
yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
Okay, so in case you do not have anything, what I would say is, you have good idea about Tosca. What I would say is, bit focus on learning about this shell scripting, and the buffer concepts, the wait concepts, and the CI/CD pipelines as well. And
Mhm.
you, uh, yeah, and just do some hands-on, more hands-on on different kind of applications, because in terms of application of Tosca, it does provides automation to lot of different applications like Salesforce, SAP, desktop applications, and so it is not only limited to web applications. It does perform to mainframe applications as well. So maybe explore on that part as well, and uh, and yeah, that's it. We can wrap it up. It was a good session.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot, Abhishek. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.